You're listening to Suburban Happy Hour with Anne-Marie
and Julia
and Katie,
the podcast where we make delicious cocktails
or mocktails
and talk about everything under the sun.
Because the best conversations happen at happy hour. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Suburban Happy Hour. Today we are joined by the lovely Katie.
Hi.
So
I'm
excited
so
to have
be
you.
here.
We have known, I think Anne-Marie's known Katie for longer than I, but we have all known each other since like grade school.
Preschool for me and
Preschool,
Katie.
literally.
Long time. So,
Yeah.
so excited you're on here. So excited for your
happy
topic.
To be here. Love to be here.
Perfect. I actually don't know. Is this like a... This is really good. This is tea, but you said it's like a cold brew.
Yeah, so like this is, I never knew that some of like the teas you can actually brew like on ice. So I never bought teas. So I found these at TJ Maxx in the food section. And these are mango green tea with a little bit of matcha.
No, I love
mine's
it.
mango green tea. But
I did.
Do you guys like
mine
it?
is too.
I really
yeah,
like
it's
it.
good.
Right? I love it.
And the stevia you recommended to put in there
Yes.
just like gives it a little bit of flavor
Right.
too.
It
So I
totally
like
does. Thanks.
it. Yeah. So this was Katie's drink of choice, and our topic is going to be all about food and nutrition. So a topic that I think a lot of people can learn from, a lot of people can relate to. But before we dive into that, Katie, how have your 20s been treating you so far?
Oh my gosh. I feel like my 20s were like my beginning of my 20s, they were more different than like my 20s now, which I feel like is a common theme in your podcast.
Yes.
But like beginning of our 20s, like everyone, we were finishing up school, people were getting jobs. Like I had an extra year of schooling. I had to complete my dietetic internship to actually literally sit for my registered dietitian exam. So I felt a little bit behind, but like my main focus was my career. Like everything else was at the bottom. I unfortunately feel like I missed out on a lot, but I don't regret anything because I love what I do and I'm so grateful that I love what I do. So that was like my beginning of my 20s, which was great. Like I got the jobs, like I kind of tested out the waters with that. And then I was like, oh, well, what am I missing, right? Like I have great friends, I have great family, I love my career. And I was like, okay, I need my boyfriend, right? Like I want a boyfriend. Like I want to find a forever.
Yeah.
So I went on Hinge and for 2 weeks and I found
She said 2 weeks.
I know.
like it was the only date I went on, literally. But it worked out because I was always like, oh, I want an older man. And then, which is so hilarious because like I ran out of people to swipe on. And then I put like a lower age and then literally for an hour and I swiped on this one guy. His name is Johnny.
One little guy.
He's pretty big. He's like 6'5".
Yeah, he's not
6'5", blue eyes. So I was like, I feel good. And then I was like, well, I'm kind of far still from my friends and my family. And I wanted to find like a full-time inpatient dietitian role in the hospital. So like the last couple of months with like my mid-20s was kind of trying to find that job because it did take a little bit of time to find a suburban job and like something I really wanted. So I had the relationship and then I truly like believe in divine timing. Like everything works out for when it's supposed to work out. And this job post came up in our hometown. And I literally texted my friends one day. I was like, guess what? I'm moving. I got an apartment in our hometown, which was crazy. And it was really exciting to be back. So within like 2 months of my mid-20s, I got a new job and I moved back.
It's so exciting though.
Yeah.
And isn't it so funny? Like in your early 20s, you thought you were so behind and now you're just like in the mix of it all. Like, do you look back and be like, why did I even think that? Or like, I think that's so funny.
Yeah.
We always think like right now we're behind, but then we end up getting what we always wanted. And then it's like, okay, it came at the right time, just like you said.
Yeah.
For
When
sure.
you're young and always throughout all phases of life, I feel like you're always going to be thinking like, what more can I do? What more should I be doing? Am I in a good spot? Just always worrying about the future. I think that's just going to be a theme throughout all like our whole lives. But it's just so funny how it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
doesn't.
You know, you're going to get to where you need to be one way or another.
And I feel like when you're like worrying about the future, you're like not in the present moment, which is something I'm like really always reminding myself to be in, because I think like not having stress about the future actually gives you better energy to what will like eventually evolve and become like what you want, like whatever situation what it will be.
Yeah, that's so true.
It
so
is.
I'm thriving. I love my 20s. I couldn't.
So happy for you.
I couldn't I'm very grateful.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you had to like overcome in your 20s that you weren't expecting to?
I think like I did lose like 2 grandparents in my 20s, and like one grandparent was very, very, very unexpected, and it was right when I started my dietetic internship in 2020. So that was like hard, and then like another death, but other than that, I'm just very thankful for everything else. Like
And then in terms of anything like rituals or routines or anything that you're kind of leaning into that's helped you along your way or that you're trying to like incorporate into your life?
Like in my 20s, I would say the last like year, I wanted to focus more on, moving my body more, like fitness and movement, because that was something I was lacking. And like, as like, I used to be an outpatient dietitian, so I'm practicing preaching, right? Like, okay, movement is good movement. Yeah. Like, okay, Katie, you better get moving, you know? So, I'm focusing on just like, I do a lot of yoga, like more like mindfulness, like approaches to things. Like I was always really great with my nutrition, like in the last couple of years, but I feel like just being more mindful of like indulging in like foods and stuff, and like as we get older, our bodies change, and like when we were younger, we were moving more, we were like on the go, and like then you go to a sedentary job, and like there's reasons why like your body changes, like hormonal and just like different routines. But I think that would be like one of my I guess, like, what was your question?
Like what you're trying to incorporate, like what you're leaning into, what you're trying to incorporate.
The last year and a half, it was all about, like, moving my body and just, like, really, and
being
like,
more mindful
of
And just so everybody knows, she has stuck to that, because I live for the daily Snapchats of her, like, getting in her yoga positions or like doing her little walk and stuff. So she's not just she's not saying it just for the camera.
Practicing what she's preaching. Yes. There we go. That's
And she's really helped me to like start moving my body more and things, just like through just like yoga in the morning or things like that. So yes, you're doing the thing.
Good for you. Good.
Thanks
Good for
for
sticking it out.
It's hard to stick to like something like it takes like at least a month to form a habit.
Yeah, it really does.
And you have to think of like whatever it is, like whatever lifestyle it will be for like food and nutrition or movement forever. Because if you can't think of it forever, then it's a diet. And if you don't already know, or if you haven't heard me already before, like diets don't work. It's a lifestyle. It's like you want to think of yourself doing something for you forever. So whatever you do, you gotta love.
Okay. That's a good way to look at it.
That is a very good way to look at it, yeah.
So now kind of transitioning into the reason why we brought you here, we just wanted to like dig into your relationship with food and kind of talk about how you even got to the point of becoming a nutrition and why you went that route. So what were your earliest memories with food, and how do you think that that's kind of shaped your relationship with it in general?
Okay, love this question. I loved all your questions, actually. So my earliest memories of food, if you don't know, you probably do know, I come from a very big Italian family. So it was always homemade food, pasta. Like I remember going and like eating calamari when I was like 5, like clams, like all this exotic food, gorgonzola cheese, like figs, like I was a child, so like just it was always surrounded by food, which I feel like everyone's culture is surrounded by food in different ways. I also had like 3 sets of grandparents growing up, so when I tell you I have a huge Italian family, I truly do. But I would say that like cooking like with my family, like making homemade pizzas. Like I always loved to cook and bake, although like my mom would always get mad at me for dirtying her stove. So when I like moved out, I was like, oh,
this is amazing.
I don't have to worry about getting yelled at for like dirtying a stove. Oh my gosh. So those are my earliest memories. And I would say that eventually when my relationship with food kind of turned was when I literally grew up. I was like super thin. And so the doctors, like pediatricians, they were like, give her whatever she wants. Like, let her eat whatever she wants. Like, okay, well, so my mom literally fed me like waffles and ice cream for breakfast because I was under the percentile. But then 3rd and 4th grade rolled around and I was over the percentile. And I just have like a core memory of my pediatrician and saying like, don't drink juice. Okay, which I get. My mom never bought juice though.
No, but you're like in 3rd grade.
I know. Drink non-fat milk, which my mom purchased non-fat milk. And don't eat cheese.
Wait,
what?
I kid you not. This is like my core memory. I was a 3rd grader. What are you, like 9?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
not only was she
like
telling me that, but like, what am I going to do with that information?
Literally.
Right.
Like, you're already like giving me a bad relationship with food by telling me an Italian to not eat cheese.
Yeah.
Come on. Also,
not going to happen.
You should be educating my mother, not a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
So that really stuck with me. So I feel like growing up, from 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, like I was on Weight Watchers. I was restricting food.
Really?
Like, oh my gosh, yeah. Which actually, like people I've like consulted and outpatient have had similar experiences at such a young age. When you're still growing, you're still learning. But then we also have social media as well. That plays a really big factor. So like you're scrolling, you're seeing like this diet here, diet there. So I feel like the disordered eating really like started when they were like no cheese.
Okay, so that was that was one of my questions for you. So hearing you talk about that, so this whole Weight Watchers and like you deciding to not eat this, not eat that, like look at the social media stuff and follow those diets, that was more so from you, was that from like your mom taking into consideration what the doctor said, or was this more so like you like wanting to like change?
I feel like my mom was just listening to the doctor, right?
Right.
Like she's gonna do anything to help like her daughter like feel better or like whatever the goals of the percentile might be. So, and I just kind of agreed with it. I'm like, well, yeah, I do want to be like, you know, at the time, like I want to be thin. Like I don't want to, like I want to feel comfortable in my own skin. And it's really sad that it started out so early. Yeah. But it also, I feel like it lasted for a while. And I didn't really realize that. Like I just thought that was like a normal feeling of like being fearful of food or like obsessed over calories. And like my mom was never that person to be like, you have to clean your plate. Like she was like, I don't care, like eat what you can, which we don't recommend doing, like enforcing someone to have a happy plate. Like they used to do that all the time at this daycare. If you cleaned your plate, it was a happy plate. But then you're like, I know, then you're like not you're not paying attention to your true hunger cues, right? You don't learn that. So yeah, I got a little off topic, but what was
that was perfect.
Question? Yeah.
So just like, how did all of those pressures end up affecting you?
I was literally like, I loved food still, but I had a really bad relationship with food, like restricting. Like I was scared to eat a vegetable or a piece of fruit, or like, oh my gosh, carbs were like the worst. It just really like was mentally and physically so draining for me, because you eat something and then you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna gain weight or whatever. I mean, and I feel like I could speak to a lot of people on this, as like a lot of people feel the same way as well, but it's just like, that is, it was so emotionally draining. Like, why were you thinking about food 24/7?
No, that's right? Like, it's an obsessive thought. I've definitely been at that place too. I guess fortunately enough, it was when I was older versus like I can't even imagine that as like a 10-year-old child, what you were going through. But It's obsessive, man. It's like you wake up, you're like, what am I eating? I can't eat this. I want this, but I can't eat that. If I eat that, this and this will happen. It's just like illogical thoughts that just keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling, and it's just exhausting. It really is.
Truthfully.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Where are you going to
go?
Is there, so you said that you went through this from like 3rd grade up until 8th grade. When did the switch kind of happen when you like decided to start creating a more healthy relationship with food, and like what kind of influenced that pivotal?
So I feel like I truly wasn't even, I was so oblivious of like this like disordered eating pattern until I started college.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's been a long
Wait,
time.
I did not know that it was that.
Because I know you guys saw it, like,
yeah,
but I was so in denial, and like maybe you guys can like kind of touch upon it. Like, I think I was in denial. I was like, no, it's good. Like, I don't really like remember, but that's like my recollection of it.
Was college? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, us, we probably didn't go about it in the best way because we were like so immature and so young at the time that we noticed it was happening, but we like had almost like an intervention with her, and we were like,
you guys
like, what? Yeah, you know, I wonder if our other friends remember this, but like we literally like sat you down in a room and we were like, no, like what you're doing isn't healthy and stuff. So like we really,
oh my God, I love that.
Like tried to let her know that like we noticed what was going on, but like again, we were all kids in like
I just know
elementary, middle school, and it was just like.
For me, I just like noticed like you dropped so much weight in such a short amount of time. I was like, what is happening?
Girl, you okay?
Yeah, I'm like, girl. Like you looked good, but you starting to look a little too skinny, you know? So.
And I also feel like just because someone is like thin or like you see that on the internet, like they can have like people get their labs drawn. They can have elevated like cholesterol.
Yeah,
like,
there's
they
so
can
many
have a GI issue where they
just
don't
because
absorb things. Like, which that's something we just don't see. Or they could have a disordered eating, you know.
Yeah.
But going back to like when the light bulb switching, I would say. Well, when I originally went to like college and I was gonna like teach culinary classes, I was gonna be a teacher. Like I had no idea what a dietitian was, and then the light bulb switched and I was like, oh, maybe like you do have some issues. Like maybe you gotta work on that, you know. When like I was in class, I think it was either freshman year or sophomore year of college, and I was like sitting next to my now registered dietitian friend, and she was like talking about how her like weightlifting and like, you know, how her body looks, like in a good positive way. And like I was like, oh yeah, like something along the lines of if I like put my like hand around my thigh, like I'm good, like, you know, like and she looked at me like and put me right in my place, like literally right in my place, and was like, what are you doing?
It's okay. It scared me.
What's that?
Her phone.
Oh.
So she put me right in my place and was like, you're body checking. And I was like, what do you mean body checking? Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, you know what I mean? And that's like why I was so oblivious of what was going on for like, you know, I don't know how many years it was, 10 years. You know, from such a young age to like sophomore year, freshman year of college. And so I looked it up because I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, whoa. I was like, she's right. Like, I shouldn't be doing that. Like, I'm going to be like a registered dietitian. Like, you know, I need to heal my relationship with food. And I also feel like my education, which most people, unless you major in nutrition and dietetics, don't get, you learn like why fruits are great for you, why vegetables are great for you, why you need carbohydrates at each meal because they're your main energy like source, why you should enjoy your favorite foods that are a little less nutrient dense. Like you learn all that stuff and the why. And I think I was missing the why and like the research-based evidence. So like by the end of college, I had such a great relationship with food. So when I was like looking at that question, I was like, it was a very expensive therapy session. But I don't regret it. Like I love my relationship with food now. I'm sure you guys know, like I'm so healed in that way. And I know like Harbin was talking, like in the last podcast, Harbin was talking about that person in the back of your mind about like those like, you know, your little person, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Like
your inner monologue,
angel,
yeah.
right? Does she come up? Like, no, she doesn't. But if it's ever a slight thought, I put her back in her place, because I'm like, like, I'm not vulnerable anymore like that. Like, I know, like, this burger I'm going to eat isn't going to affect my weight loss and weight management, because I don't eat burgers every day.
Yeah.
Like,
right, exactly.
You know, it's all about moderation in the end of it. But, so that was my whole, like, relationship with food. Like, how, like, the pivotal turn of, like, let's work on this.
And it's just so funny. Like, a common theme I've noticed talking to people is, like, it takes sometimes an outside source that you don't really know to, like, put you in your place or, like, kind of check you. Because that girl, you said that was more so, like, an acquaintance at that point. Like, you didn't really know.
She was my friend.
Oh, she was your, okay. But it's, like, you need, like, that external dialogue.
Yeah, to be like, okay, what are you doing?
What? Yeah. Like, you with Emma, like, you with your friend. It's, like.
But no, that's so funny. But, like, kind of what you were even saying about how you kind of started to overcome this, like, bad relationship with food that you had when you started to learn the research behind it all.
For sure.
Because even growing up and even now, like, I don't know much information about food besides what you've told me
on the plane
and
going to Florida.
And it's just like you get, like, it bombarded in your brain and in your face through social media and through what other people are saying, that, like, this is bad for you, blah blah blah, like, and that's just not the case. People are just, I feel, so uneducated when it comes to things that are about food, and they really just care about like how they look, but they don't take into consideration, like, the science behind it all and what you actually need to be healthy. So that's why I just, like, love talking to you about this topic, because you are so knowledgeable in that sense. And, like, I leave you and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I could definitely change things, like, with my eating habits, but it doesn't have to be as drastic as it looks like it needs to be, or other people are telling me that it needs to be.
For sure. And it's hard not to, like, listen to, like, you know, Joe on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, that random Google search you do. Like, who do you listen to? Like, I always recommend listening to a registered dietitian. Like, we are, like, the food nutrition experts.
Yeah.
And this kind of, like, goes into, like, you know, like, registered dietitians, we have a protective, like, licensure. We take a state exam. We go through the undergraduate experience, and, like, not, like, there's a nutritionist and registered dietitians. Like, nutritionists, they can take, like, just, like, a couple nutrition courses and slap that name, like, on their, you know, profile, or your favorite influencer, right? And then, like, we have, like, the research-based evidence. And so all registered dietitians are nutritionists, but not all nutritionists are registered dietitians.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
I just have one more question too before we, like,
for sure,
move on to the next set of questions. But you said that, again, going to school kind of helped you overcome your relationship with food. Was there anything else that you did to help overcome that kind of, that bad relationship that you had?
I like, and I was trying to think, like, what did I do? Like, you know, I know just being consistent with, like, my routine, like, with eating, like, meal prepping, like, literally following my own advice, like, especially after I was, like, graduated and everything, and just, but no, I didn't go to therapy or anything, which I feel like maybe if I went to therapy for it, like, earlier on, if I actually was, like, I actually knew that I had, like, this bad eating.
You have
like,
to be aware in order to, like,
But I know I'm very fortunate enough where, like, it wasn't to a point where I, like, had to be hospitalized or, like, had to go to, like, an inpatient, like, rehab type of thing. But it was literally just, like, school, which is, like, crazy to me. That's why I'm like, that was my therapy.
But, you know, that is good advice, because once you get the research behind things, it starts to become more clear and it seems less scary. And that's just for, like, more topics just unrelated to food too, but that can also just help your mindset if you are struggling with things like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Data always helps. You know, I'm not an analytical person, but, like, if I do have to and I'm struggling with something like emotionally, like sometimes scientific evidence does help put it in a lighter, like a clearer picture. But kind of moving on, so now that, you know, you went to school, you're starting to create like this healthy relationship with food again. How did you navigate the balance between eating for health and then eating for enjoyment?
Okay. I think this stems like for anyone, like kind of how we were raised and like how we grew up. Like I grew up and I always had like a protein, a vegetable, a carb. Like my mom always made homemade meals. So, like I just liked these foods. So I never had an issue like adding more vegetables to my plate because like I liked vegetables. Like my family always makes fun of me and they're like, you're a rabbit, because like I love vegetables. So it was like not really hard for me to like combine those things.
Okay.
Making sure like I add what I needed and added what I want is kind of what I like to say. I mean, I love healthy foods. So I think it comes down to like trying to season things how you like. Maybe you don't have to be going around eating raw vegetables. Like that is so boring. And if you love that, good for you. Like it's healthy. Like please do that. But you don't have to eat raw vegetables. And that's how you try to force down your vegetables. Like you can bake them, you can steam them, you can saute them in your favorite seasonings. Like also like texture is like a really important thing as well. But like I would say like, you know, social media says it's like a cheat day. Like that is so toxic. Like even like labeling good or bad foods, but I like to say less nutrient dense foods. Because if we ate less nutrient dense foods every day, like we're not going to reach our like health and wellness like goals, whatever that might be. But I still enjoy those favorite foods. And typically what I like to do is like, okay, whatever I'm craving, like I'll eat very well during the week, which is what I love to do anyways. Cause I just make it yummy and delicious. And then on the weekend, like if I'm like I crave fried chicken. Like if I'll get some fried chicken, I'll get burgers, I'll get tacos, like Mexican, Chinese, like and I'll satisfy that. And I'm okay with that because I know that day like I eat and like not overindulge that is not going to affect my like health and wellness journey. So did that answer the question?
Yes, that did.
And I feel like if you don't indulge in those things, it could end up in like a scenario where you're binge eating certain foods that,
for sure.
you know, because you're like
that's
in
why,
that
like,
mindset and stuff. Like
thanks to you too, when you started telling me stuff about food. This was like actually a couple years ago when I was like on some crazy ass diets. It was during COVID. Like you tried the craziest
craziest stuff.
Guys, I will not.
I'm sorry, I probably put you in your place.
No, you did. I did not. I mean, I do not have the best relationship with food, but it's like very like periodic. Like some months I'm totally fine. Other months I'm on a fucking crazy
No, she'll
diet.
literally like walk into my house and be like, "Don't look at me. I'm on a diet." I'm like, okay.
Like I can't. But no. The point I'm trying to make is that I remember I had a conversation with you, and you were saying the whole thing like about restricting yourself from foods that are less nutrient dense, but you know you're craving them, and you're like, just eat it, because like the more you think about it, the worse it's going to be. Then when you finally do allow yourself to eat it, you're going to eat like 10 times the quantity. So I was like, okay, I'll have my fucking chocolate or 2 or 3 for the day. You know what? And it's going to be okay.
And you're going to get over it. And then you're going to be less likely to overeat it. Right. So I love that you like actually took like some of my advice. That's amazing. But that's a common thing I see, like, especially when I was an outpatient dietitian for 2 years. So like I saw a lot of like restricting, like people would restrict their favorite foods, and ultimately that's a diet then, right? Like we're restricting our favorite foods. We're not allowing us to have favorite foods. That's quite sad.
And then like, it just like makes you it's like a shitty person.
Like
if you're not eating what you want or like in moderation, you're just gonna like why sometimes I get like angry. I'm like, I can't have a piece of chocolate. Like I get so frustrated.
Right. It's like just have the fucking for me my guilty pleasure is chocolate. Like, I have chocolate every single day. I love chocolate, but it's like even the freaking piece of pizza or the burger or something, like just like you said, in moderation, it's okay.
It totally is okay. And I feel like going back to like adding what you need and adding what you want, like my meal prep this week, like I always want a vegetable for lunch. So like I have a frozen like Sicilian style pizza that I needed to make. And it was from my favorite Italian place where I used to live. So I was like, well, I'm not going to have like 2 or 3 or 4 slices, right? Like, because that's not going to help me reach my nutrition and health and wellness goals. But also like that will make me feel like crap.
Yeah.
Like I could feel that
Yeah.
like, on my body. So what I did was like, it's a thicker Sicilian style pizza. So I have a slice, I make a side salad. I put like fun, colorful carrots in it, tomatoes, gorgonzola cheese. Like I made an olive oil vinaigrette dressing, and then I have like fruit on the side with it. So I'm still like enjoying my pizza, but I'm also adding what I need, like fruit and vegetables with it. And you're more satisfied. You have more energy throughout the day with that because you're adding those different food groups that help slow the rise of like your blood sugar levels and balance energy throughout the day instead of just eating all that carb load.
Yeah.
And then you're like crashing and you're like so tired. So that's what I like kind of think of when I think of like, I don't restrict myself. I just add what I need.
Yeah.
Add what I want.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that, Katie. Now we kind of want to get into the nitty gritty of why you decided to become a dietitian because of the fact that you wanted to first become a foods teacher.
Yeah.
What influenced that?
Literally I used to work at like my college, and I had to major in a core subject to become a family consumer science teacher and minor in all the little stuff. And I actually like took, I think it's a TEAS, maybe it's whatever the exam is to be part of the education program. I failed. But
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like I cannot major in math, science, social studies. Like, oh my gosh, like food is my life. Like so I think like everyone comes into your life for a reason. So I actually worked with someone who was like majoring in nutrition and dietetics.
Oh,
So she
wow.
was like, I was telling her about it, and she was like, come to one of our like SNDA meetings, which is like the Student Nutrition and Dietetics Association. So I was like, okay, like I'll see what it's all about. So I went to their meeting and I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. So I literally changed my major the first semester and started taking nutrition classes second semester of freshman year. So that was like the big influence. I kind of just took a
It just
shot
like
for
stumbled
it.
upon you.
Yeah. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
so happy I failed that exam because like,
Who knows where you would have been now, you know?
Little did I know that I had to take a huge exam to be a dietitian, but that's okay.
Okay,
You did
but
it.
look
I
at
did
you.
it. I did it.
Look at you, certified and
But it
everything.
was all meant to be. You
Exactly.
know?
And then I think you kind of went over this, but if you could just like refresh our brains a little bit.
For sure.
How has your understanding of nutrition evolved as, you've evolved in your career?
Yeah, this is a great question. I feel like, of course, all the fad diets and the myths of like diet culture, like that was a huge switch. Like I had to like unlearn all that stuff and be like, this is what we're going to tell patients. Like this is the legit real news.
Yeah.
Like, but also as I was working through like my internship, which you go through different rotations of like where you can work as a registered dietitian, like on the other side of like, you think of like dietitians and it's like weight loss, right?
Yeah.
Like, we do so much more than that, than just like trying to help people lose weight. Like right now I work as an inpatient dietitian, and in the hospital we're mainly looking for malnutrition, which is people who like aren't able to eat. Like we do physical exams on them, we diagnose malnutrition and it gets sent to the doctor and they approve it. We do nutrition support, so people who can't eat enough by mouth and they need like an NG tube. We calculate the calories, the protein needs, and we pick out a formula specific for them.
Oh, wow.
If their gut doesn't work, we use something called like total parental nutrition, which is basically like nutrition in a big bag, and it's through like a central line. But that part, like growing as a nutrition, like I didn't understand there was that part as well,
Right.
which is just very different from what everyone thinks like the registered dietitians do.
Yeah.
Because we're everywhere. Like I'm on a stroke floor, oncology, mother baby, and
Oh, wow.
neurology. So I see a lot of people on nutrition support just to make sure they're not losing weight because outcomes are like, if you are malnourished, you have like worse outcomes in the hospital.
Got it.
So that's like our specialty, like Ensure drinks. You lose weight. You want a protein drink? You want me, Ma, to get a protein drink?
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
So that's like our first line of like, let's try to like supplement you. But I think it's involved into like, we are so much more than like
somebody to help you like when you lose weight.
And I think that goes perfectly into another question we had for you about your belief on how food can actually have those healing properties, and it can heal more than just like physical nutrition. So can you just like touch base on what your thoughts about that are?
Yeah, for sure. Like physical nutrition as in like how you look, right?
Yeah.
So of course, like preventative medicine, nutrition and like movement, it's all preventative medicine to prevent these chronic diseases like heart disease or like obesity or diabetes, high blood pressure, any like wonky like lab value that you get from your annual visit from your primary doctor. So I think that's the first step. Like, you know, you go to the doctor's office, you have a slightly elevated like A1C or you're in the pre-diabetes range, and they're like, okay, like work on your nutrition and your movement. That's like the first line of practice, right? And we do need medications at some point if we can't control these like chronic diseases. And there's also something called genetics that we just can't control. So you need medication sometimes. And I think just because you get put on a medication doesn't mean you can't disregard like still having a healthy lifestyle, still moving your body, like if we're lucky enough to be able to do those things, you know? So I think there's a time and place for like medications to intertwine if that is what we need at that time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's like my dad. My dad has to be on all these medications and he wants to like get off of them. So he's like trying all these different like health things, like different things with your food, or trying to fix his diet. And he just like doesn't keep up on that. So we're like, no, you would never like follow through with what you actually need to like maintain it with what you eat or whatnot. So like he has to stay on those medications in order for it to like actually stay at bay. And I'm like, he's just so funny. I mean, you guys know my dad. He really tries to think outside the box with some things, and I'm like,
he thinks
you're better just popping that pill. You're good.
Yeah.
No, but that definitely makes sense. It's like that first. There's like, I like the way you said that. If you can try to stay healthy and, you know, prevent yourself from getting to that step, it's all with like a balance of moving your body and eating well. But you can't avoid sometimes, like you said, if you have some genetic things, it is what it is. But it's like, it's simple. It's a simple concept, but I think it's a lot harder to like actually implement like a good, healthy, balanced like diet and lifestyle and all that stuff. But that's good to know that you can help yourself, you know, by doing that.
And it is complex. So I was just wondering, like, how do you go about talking to your patients about this? Because you know how like hard it can be, and having those relationships about food, even if you're coming from such a good place, when people hear things like that, they could get like on the defense. So how do you even go about that?
Yeah, there's a reason why I left outpatient dietitian world, and it was very draining at some points, I would say.
Can you just quickly explain the difference between outpatient and inpatient?
So inpatient, I already kind of talked about. It's like in the hospital, you're seeing patients. It's you know, maybe you're in the room for 15, 20 minutes, depending if you are doing an education, but we're doing mostly nutrition support, looking at people who've lost weight or have had a loss of appetite, something called like a pressure injury, like they need more protein, sometimes diet education, but we always usually refer to outpatient, do a little brief education. That's when they would go to like their outpatient dietitian. So outpatient, you're at a doctor's office. So you're literally with a patient for an hour. You kind of review their chart. Like what I would do is I would review their chart, their labs, see why they're coming, and another part of is like they'd be coming in and for one thing, but they come in with something completely different. So you always have to be on your toes with that. You never know. You just never know what's going to come. So like that's the main difference. Like outpatient, like you're coming back, right? Like you don't want to come back to the hospital, like and be admitted because then you're sick, you know? That's what the idea is, right? Outpatient, you can follow up with them. It's more like one-to-one counseling, nutrition.
Okay.
Like inpatient is like so different compared to outpatient.
Gotcha. Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes. So then going about that now, how do you handle those tough conversations? Or, I mean, they don't necessarily even have to be tough, but just those conversations with your patients.
I always like used to set like the tone for my nutrition sessions with the patients. Always made sure I knew their past medical histories. Always ask them like, what brings you in today? Not assuming you're coming in for diabetes education. Yeah. You know, or you're coming in for weight loss.
Right.
Or you're coming in because you're underweight. Because we did sometimes get those. But mostly it was weight loss and diabetes management. Because then they'll tell you, right? Everyone loves to talk about themselves. Like that's something I realized. So creating that like really accepting environment, and I, as you guys know, like I feel like I could really like match people's energies.
Oh yeah.
I like you, like at least I'm really good with that. I'm very empathetic. So like if someone is like crying in my nutrition session, like they're probably not ready to meet, like to change their lifestyle changes. There's probably something going on that they need to be referred to like a therapist or someone to talk to, right? Like, or someone like a little bit more specialty, like a disordered eating dietitian, like something like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
But creating that, just, I would tell people straight up, like, I don't believe in diets. I'm not putting you on a diet. And I loved when people left my sessions and multiple people, like, I always felt like this was like the, you know, you have the percent of people who like are so grateful for like that information you give. You also have some people who are just like, I'm going to follow TikTok. Like, peace out. Like, you know, which is okay. Like
you did your job. You educated the best you could. And what they do with that information is.
Exactly. You can only do so much. Right. And like, you also don't want it to be draining. Right. Like, so like people have left my sessions like, thank you so much. I learned so much. I think I can do this. Like you totally like shifted my perspective of like what a dietitian is, because we don't put people on diets. We don't give people meal plans because that's essentially a diet. We teach people the habits and implement these small little goals, which are pretty big to some people, creating these changes and just being with them like one-to-one. Like we're here. I'm like not
creating
here
a safe
because
space.
I think that's so important.
Creating a safe space. Like this is us. We're here. We're together. I know a little bit more about nutrition than you, but that's okay. I meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, because I know food and body image and all that stuff, it's a very sensitive topic to so many people. So it's like creating that safe space, meeting them where they're at. That's like, I would love to have you as like my dietitian, because like you make it comfortable. It's because it can come off very condescending too, especially when you are like an expert in something and you're trying to explain to someone who's like struggling. Like I can see how that power dynamic could make some people uncomfortable. So the fact that you try to make it like you tell me what's going on and let me aid you in the best way I can, it's a good approach to that.
Yeah.
If you were going to ask the other question before you do that, I just love your approach too of where. And I feel like a lot of people, when you're trying new things or incorporating it, this is kind of the approach they have for the people we've had on the podcast, was like, start with a small goal first. You don't need to like completely do a whole 180 on your food habits. Like start adding in a little bit more protein here, and then like make it manageable, because I feel like, again, that is like the hardest thing is when people do that complete 180. You're not going to stick to it
for sure,
and it's going to be much harder to keep that maintainable throughout your life if it's like something that's going to stress you out or drain you in that way.
Yeah, totally on point with that for sure.
So then, Katie, what would you say, what role does mindfulness or self-awareness play in your current like relationship with food for you personally?
And for those of you who don't know, Katie is a very mindful person. I feel like you're very in tune with that. So I'm excited for this question.
I think just being so self-aware of your habits is really important when you're trying to start a health and wellness journey. But mindful eating, it's a whole approach. Like you look up mindful eating, you'll see a lot of dietitians write about it, but it's literally like appreciating your food, the smell, the like crack of your potato chip or tortilla chip, the sizzling of making your chicken, or like the whole process of cooking, the visual appeal of it. It's also being present. Again, like I'm really big about being in the present moment. You see my apartment and it says be here now because you should be here now. And that's the same thing with eating, like being present, not having like distractions while you're eating, even if it's like watching TV or scrolling through whatever you like to scroll on. So really being in that present moment and enjoying that meal, because you're going to enjoy it more rather than if you kind of were like half eating and half doing something else. And ultimately, then you sometimes skip meals. Like, you know, I feel like we're just so rushed in this society nowadays that we forget about eating. And that ultimately, like, screws you over later in the day, especially if you don't start your day out with something to just get your metabolism going. But you should always, like, start a meal, like starting kind of get hungry. Like if you want to use a hunger scale, this is also part of mindful eating. Like, oh, you haven't eaten in a couple hours, like you're probably going to get hungry soon. So that's when I kind of start prepping like my food to make. And by the time my food is done, like I'm hungry, you know, I'm not hangry. Because you should never start a meal hangry, because then you're more likely to overeat your food.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it takes your mind and your stomach like 15 minutes for you to be like, girl, you're satisfied. Yeah, like, you know. So if you're really hungry and you're eating really fast, then you're going to miss that hunger cue. And then you're going to be super full.
Interesting.
And you should never be like super stuffed or full like after your meals. You should just feel like satisfied. I know it's literally a science.
That's so fucking funny. I'm always hangry and I'm always stuffed to the brim where I'm like unbuttoning my pants. Yes. So that's great.
So it's also like mindful eating is also like, are you eating out of an emotion? Did you have a rough day at work? Like, or are you like truly hungry? Like I asked myself, like, are you hungry, Katie? Like, okay, like I know if I go to the store and I don't eat, I'm going to be hangry when I come home and I'm going to be crazy and I'm going to want something. So let's like eat a little something before. So like that is how I approach mindful eating. And like the last like, you know, year and a half, I have been on like a health and wellness journey and just like implementing all these different like just being more mindful, and it's definitely helped a lot. And being consistent with it. But I feel like that is like my mindful eating approach, not just with like eating, but I also do that with like managing your stress. That also has an impact on your health and wellness journey. Managing your sleep. Like that's huge. And like, you know, you guys know I thrive at 10 hours of sleep. Like
I'll text her, like we'll be in a group chat. It's like 7:30. She said, "Oh, I can't. I'm in bed." I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
I'm under my covers.
Yeah.
Okay. That's impressive, because I wish I could do that.
I know. It's so good though. I just love sleep. But that's like almost half my day. So, but I've been really like crazy, and I've been actually getting like 8.5 to 9.
Okay.
She really pushed it back a little bit.
She pushed it back.
Especially tonight.
The day. No, but like exactly what you said about eating with emotion. I feel like so many people do that, especially with like the hangry part. Oh my gosh, like I just started my new job and I won't like eat. I'll just be like sitting at my desk, you know, working, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, get to the point where I'm like, oh my God, I'm starving. I'll literally like shove my food in my mouth. I'll eat just like everything that I brought. And then I'm like, I feel like shit.
Why'd I do that?
I feel like shit. I don't even think I was like that hungry to like eat all of this stuff. But so I totally get that. But I feel like a lot of people are like battling that too. I don't know if that's the right word to say. But I just, again, love the approach that you take, and even just like the thoughts that you have with making sure you are being mindful when you're eating and stuff like that. Like
listening
I start
to your
think
body
about
too.
that.
Yeah,
I've been starting to be better about that. Like, especially when I go, like, I'm going out to the restaurants and stuff. I'm like, well, I need to finish all this. They paid for it. I'm like,
you can eat leftover.
You can eat leftover, like, especially if we're
For
going out
sure.
somewhere after. I'm like, I do not want to be bloated and like and having a stomach ache while I'm trying to do something. So it's like, eat till you're content, not till you're like stuffed. So
Yeah, how do you even like know that though? Like how does that take practice to eat until you're content? Like what does that even like, what does that even mean?
Like when you're like, should I be like, if you're questioning like, do I really need to eat this next bite? I think that's when you're like, good, like you're
so
like,
true though.
Yeah. Like, do I need this? Like,
You should feel satisfied, not like your stomach is like starting to get full.
Okay.
But like, if you're crazy and hangry, you're not going to feel that until after you
have already done it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just need to like eat when you're in a good mindset
Headspace.
and headspace. Don't let it get to that point where you're just like
have a
fighting
plan.
for food.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest part.
It is.
You know what Dylan does that drives me nuts? He will eat standing up, and he like just like scarfs his food down. And I'm like, can you sit the fuck down? Like enjoy your food.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
sit down, because he can eat his food in
But
like
what
a
if
minute.
he enjoys his food standing up? Because I eat standing up sometimes.
No. You at least put it down on the counter and like leaning over it. Like he will just stand in the middle of the kitchen with his plate here and eating. I'm like, what is happening?
He doesn't even let it get to the table.
No,
He's just like scarfing it down.
Like, oh my god, like, are you all right? So, I should tell him, you need to be more mindful. You need to sit your ass down.
Yeah, if you're gonna like eat together.
No, that's what I say. I'm like, can you like sit with me? Like, sit down.
Yeah.
Let's
eat
talk.
together. Talk about the great food. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, that's the mindful eating approach.
Yeah. I really need to get into that. I gotta figure that one
You
out.
do too.
Like,
You
I
be
gotta figure
eating
that one
sitting
out.
up too, and I don't understand.
Okay, but like when I'm standing up and I'm eating, I'm still comfortable. Like I don't even want to explain how I eat sometimes.
Yeah,
because
it's real crazy.
Gig is a little crazy
Fucking
sometimes.
legs up on the counter.
Oh my god.
But it's comfortable to me.
Yeah.
Okay, nobody
Yeah.
wants to know how I eat. Like, okay, relax. Anyways.
Okay, to wrap it up, how has your love for cooking enriched your professional life as a nutritionist, and do you see it as a key element in promoting a healthy relationship with food?
I think with my patients, or like especially outpatient, people were always so like lost with like meal prepping, or how do I prep like foods like this. So like I experimented with food. I love to cook, so I always had like ideas, like always. Like at first I kind of like, when I first started outpatient, I was like like I had to have these like really like listed out in my head, but it's like so second nature to me. Like they're like,
I miss your Instagram page for your food. You
I
need
know.
to go back
Happy
on that.
food
Guys,
plates.
Katie had
What?
the best Instagram with all the food she was making.
I know.
Me and Dylan would always scroll through like this.
Oh my
It's
God.
and
so
she's
good.
incredible.
I think it's like a full-time job. Like as you guys know, this is like basically
social
a
media is
full-time
not
job.
easy.
I have a full-time job already, and I babysit. So I'm pretty I just feel like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to put all my energy into it. So maybe eventually in the future, it'll come back. But for now, it's going to stay low and just chill.
Well, I mean, I'm excited if it ever does come back because, like I said, your food is amazing.
Yes, and I'm sorry. I think I cut you off with that. Like, for the question, sorry if I cut you off. Were you saying anything else to that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Wait, what are you talking about?
What was the question?
Because it was like, how has your love for cooking enriched your professional life as a nutritionist?
Well, it's just easier to give like recommendations to people. So what I would usually like ask people, I'm like, oh, what do you like to eat for breakfast? And they're like, well, usually I just eat like a slice of toast. And I'm like, okay, well, let's add some protein to it. Let's
You just eat a piece of toast? That's it?
And then there would be like, oh, like, girl, no wonder why you're hangry at lunch.
She said, I just had a piece of bread.
Love you though. Anyways, let's add some protein to it. Like if it's like some boiled eggs or some egg bites.
I do like eggs.
Yeah, you can eat eggs every day.
But I'm in like one of those you know, when you eat too many eggs, they start to taste like eggs, and I'm like, ooh, this isn't good anymore.
No, I get it. It's with bananas.
They're too eggy. They're too eggy. Yeah, but it's like
it's like when the chicken tastes a little too chickeny.
Yeah. The egg really.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. Maybe you need to switch up the style of the way you make it. Maybe a hard-boiled egg. Well, now you got to switch it to hard-boiled.
You know, I tried that. I had literally 2 cartons of eggs in there, and they're probably gonna go bad. No, I'll eat eggs.
All right.
I'm sorry you have to deal with eggs tasting like eggs, but make it a different
way.
So I would basically just like go through like what they're doing already and see what I could add to it.
Okay.
So just like adding to it, like because you're gonna be hungry in an hour.
Yeah.
Or, like if you only eat like a slice of toast, so starting out with even if it's like a protein shake with your like piece of bread, like amazing, better than just like not eating anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also feel like people like think it's like sometimes people would come in my office and be like, I know what to do, I just don't do it. That like do you know? Do you know? You know what I mean? Like, and like I would never like be offended by it. I'm like, okay, well let's talk. Like let's chat. And then at the end they're like, I really didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just so like the nutrient label. Like, have you guys ever felt overwhelmed reading a nutrient label?
I never. When I look, I just say how many calories, and that's literally all. Now with protein, my goal is to eat more protein because I don't
love it.
So now I take into consideration the protein and the calories, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just all about calories, but you know, for weight loss, weight management, you have to be in the deficit somehow if you're exercising more or adding more less caloric dense foods to your plate and still eating your, you know, other like caloric like higher caloric dense like foods. So I always like give this example to my patients though, or I used to. It's like almonds, right? Like, or like nuts and seeds. They're a heart healthy fat, so they're good. They're good fats compared to like saturated fats, which is like our butter, our full fat dairy, our cheeses, and like what's the other? Coconut oil. Coconut oil is a saturated fat. So those ones are the less heart healthy fats compared to like your other heart healthy fats that come from nuts, seeds, avocados, olive oils, all those. But the like a serving of nuts is like over 200 calories. So, you know, you think you're like doing so well, like eating these like nuts out of your bag, but now you have like 500 calories of like nuts.
Yeah.
And that's not going to physically fill your stomach up, right? So like going back to like the common theme of what I'm saying is like, okay, you can have your nuts. Yeah. But let's add something to it, like some fruit, or like maybe some string cheese, some protein in there. Or maybe you're going to have your protein with some nuts, like something like that, because I don't think we realize like, yeah, it's healthy, but if we're trying to reach those healthy like weight loss goals or whatever that might be, portion control, or like 2 tablespoons of olive oil, right? That's like in the hundreds of calories.
Yeah.
Right. I just know this because I'm a dietitian, right? Like, well, maybe you guys know it too, but like, it's just the perspective on it. Like you can get more volume food, like with fruits and vegetables compared to like a fat, which provides you with more calories per gram. So, protein keeps you fuller for longer. So if you miss out on the protein, you're going to be really hungry and you'll find yourself to be a little bit more hungry. But I think I just got off topic, so let's circle back to what we were talking about.
No, I think that like wrapped it up, basically. Yeah. It's just what I've taken away from this. But it's the whole portion control, right? But
For
it's
sure.
like it's very complex. So if you have the luxury of like talking to a dietitian like me and Anne-Marie do, it's like take advantage of that, because
for sure.
No offense, I am not going to do the time and work to like find that all out on my own. So it's nice that I can like use you as a resource, because at the end of the day, like it's a hard thing to understand, but once you do, it's like it makes it that much easier to reach your goals. But
for sure,
if you're not going to do it yourself, get someone who will help you, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You know?
But too, I also feel like people think like obviously nutrition and eating healthy and whatnot is hard, but I feel like people think that also means that you can't eat the things that you want.
Right. And
but
that's why you need to be educated.
I know. And I love that. even Katie like said this in the beginning, like you don't have to eat just like raw vegetables. Like
Right.
So
you can
sad.
add your seasonings. You can make it something like healthy food doesn't have to look sad. Like it can look like,
Right.
you know, like mix it up, add those seasonings, add things in there that like add what you want, but also what you need. I think that's like the most important thing about just this whole thing. And a lot of people just don't understand that, including me. So like everybody's still learning
in any way you can. Yeah.
Yes.
But
I also feel like, sorry, can I say
yeah,
one more thing?
go right ahead.
I think at the end of the day, like it's what we do to food that makes it less nutrient dense, like deep fry food.
Yeah.
Put like cream sauce on it. And again, like not something like you can't do, but like we're not going to do that all the time, you know?
Right.
And it's the portion control. It's what we do to food that makes it less nutrient dense. It's the portion that makes it less nutrient dense.
And that makes sense. I need like one of those portion control things.
Yeah,
or like,
the plate method. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it used to be like a long time ago. Would you guys remember learning about the pyramid?
Yeah.
Now it's the plate method. So like most of your plate should be non-starchy vegetables. So any vegetables besides peas, potatoes, and corn, those are starchy vegetables. You can still eat them. They'll just fall under the little starchy carbohydrate category, which should be about 25% of your plate, or like the size of your fist, which is equivalent to about a cup of cooked rice, cooked pasta. Like,
and that's for the healthy vegetable, not
that's for the starch, the carb.
The carb.
But like you have like starchy vegetables like potatoes, beans.
Oh, so those could like
corn.
replace bread or rice, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they're a little bit more whole carbohydrates. Like, well, maybe the corn, no, but like like rice or like whole wheat rice or like beans and lentils. They're gonna have more fiber, more protein in them.
Got it.
So it's gonna be a starchy vegetable. And then the other part of your plate is protein. So they say like about 3 to 4 ounces, which is like the size of your palm. And then in a perfect world, we'd have like a non-fat dairy source on the side. Yeah, I'm like,
what does that even mean?
Milk.
So like milk or guys. Cottage cheese, yogurt.
I could do cottage cheese.
So if you're gonna eliminate a food group because you don't like it or you're allergic to it or you can't have it due to religious purposes, I always recommend like a multivitamin.
Okay.
Especially like vitamin D, the best source is the sun. It like if you're vitamin D deficient, there's no like one food that will literally get you out of deficiency of vitamin D because the best source is the sun. And even when you put like sunblock on your skin, it actually like you can't absorb vitamin D when you have sunscreen on. So most people have to supplement year round, especially when we live in, the Midwest.
Yeah.
When we don't see the sun for like months.
Yeah.
Which I also feel like if we're not eating fruits and vegetables every day or like protein every day, like you're at risk for a nutrient deficiency, which can be as little as being fatigued, being tired, like having a headache, like
Oh, girl,
like
I'm fucking deficient in something.
It's so true, though. I mean, it is. Like,
and I notice it's on the days where I'm not drinking my water, where I haven't eaten breakfast, and it's like 3 p.m. I'm like, God damn, I haven't drank a cup of water yet.
I'm feeling
what did I
so
eat?
tired and so sick.
Oh my God.
Did you have a drink of water?
No.
I didn't even dip my tongue in one today, actually. Thank you.
I actually had a coffee. Skinny.
Stop.
That TikTok.
Wait, shout out my work friends. They're the best, but they know I eat lunch at like 10:45, 11 o'clock.
10:45?
And like,
lunch? Well, you go to bed at like 7.
Well, I eat my breakfast burrito at work at like 7 o'clock while I'm like looking at people's charts. But like, my friend was like, it was like 12 o'clock, 12:30. And she's like, you're probably withering away. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Skinny. Like,
yeah, literally.
It was so funny.
Skinny.
Love them. They're great.
Oh my gosh. No, that's so funny.
So, I think it's like don't overcomplicate it, but it is complex. Like nutrition and fitness, it's so like, I think it's frustrating as well, especially because we think of like progress as like losing weight, which is a great thing to look at, but like you're not gonna like, there's other things like how your clothes fit. Like if you are adding like movement and like training, like weight training, like the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest. So like that's why like you shouldn't just be doing cardio. And I'm not like a personal trainer or anything, but like I can give these like, little tips and tricks, but like what was I going to say? I feel like that's why it's frustrating, because you want these results right away, but they're not going to come right away. Like the best weight loss journey or like healthy journey, if you want to like, you know, get tone or buff or strong, is like when it takes time, and that's like the healthy like way to do it. So
isn't it like proven that it's like, please correct me if I'm wrong with these numbers, like 80% nutrition, 20%.
It's some crazy shit like that.
20% fitness, or
for sure. I mean,
something like that.
I don't know the exact ratio, but it's definitely a lot more food than it is.
For sure. For sure. Like, I think it definitely is a lot more food. I don't know the stats on it. I can't pull up a research study on it, so don't quote me.
But
like, I guess like I eat pretty well. Like I love healthy food, and I was like, well, what can I do more? Because I wanted to like, you know, feel more comfortable in my skin. Like I wanted like to be strong. Like another indicator of like feeling okay is like, oh, like your joints feel better from working out, or like you walked up the stairs and you're not out of breath. Like that is like a win. Or like your clothes are fitting better, your belt's fitting better. But starting like yoga and like walking every single day, like, whoa. I'm like, I needed some kind of like endurance, like some kind of physical movement, like to reach those goals, like, but still feel good and still get enough nutrition and that kind of thing. So I do think it's like nutrition, but like I was missing like the physical part.
Right. You need that nice balance.
For sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
For sure.
And then to actually wrap things up.
Sorry, I know. I could talk forever about nutrition.
No, you're fine. That's the whole reason why we wanted you on here.
I love it.
Just overall, what advice would you give people in their 20s? It could be about nutrition. It doesn't have to be though.
I would say, like, if we're thinking about nutrition, my advice to give you is start out something that you think is going to be achievable and attainable. I also feel like if you do struggle with any, like, disordered eating or thoughts, because I think you can have, like, disordered thoughts but not have disordered eating, which is, it's interchangeable. Like, disordered eating is eating disorder, of course. Like, right, like you don't have to have like a disordered eating. You can have those thoughts, even if it's like, oh, I wish this looked better, or I can't have that, like that kind of thing. Yeah. I think like seeking out that like help, like to therapy, if that's something you're interested in, to kind of overcome that, as well as working with a registered dietitian if you are lucky enough, because unfortunately some of our services are not covered by insurances. You just have to talk to your insurance about it. I'm not the Blue Cross Blue Shield gal. I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's true.
It's so true. And then I feel like in regards to just general advice in your 20s, I would say like always be in the present moment. I think I'm really big about that because it helps not worry about the future, like we talked about. Always thinking, I'm just like, I always think about the positives in every situation, and it just makes life so much better. And this reminded me of like Morgan's podcast or when she came on about just like having that good energy. Like if you think bad, like that's gonna that's gonna manifest. Like you're gonna manifest that, you know? And so like I'm always that person that like looks at the glass half full rather than empty. Like, and also I feel like being in like the hospital, like you just see people so sick.
Yeah,
and, like,
you get a different perspective.
Like everyone's going through something, and like it just, I always like think to myself like it could always be worse. And like I'm very fortunate and lucky that I have the people I'm surrounded by and everything, and I love my career. Like that's another advice I would give in your 20s, if you're like about to be in your 20s or maybe starting a new career or something like you did, like find something that you like absolutely truly love while still making you know, by still being able to live with like a salary, of course. But I wake up and I'm like, I'm excited to go to work, which is like actually crazy. Like I'm very blessed and grateful for that. People would think I'm like crazy about that, but you know what?
That's awesome.
No, that is
I love
awesome.
what I do.
People strive for that.
Like I also love like seeing patients like who like are just having a rough day and just going in there with my positive energy. And if it's just like liberalizing their diet so they can order whatever they want, like, okay, I made their day. Like, they control that in the like, you know, that if there's something that you can try to control in the hospital, it's the food you get, right? So yeah, I feel like that's my advice in the 20s. And like, don't take life too seriously. Like, it's not that serious. Oh, it is serious, but like, you know,
it doesn't have to be that.
But really, how serious is it?
Right. Yeah. And like, take chances. Like, take that job that you might not like, and like, eventually it all works out for what it's supposed to work out in divine timing. So.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's so good to see, and it makes me so happy to see your growth, where you once were and where you are now. Like, truly, it's amazing. You do bring off just the best energy,
you
so
really
much
do.
positivity.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody loves being around you. We literally talk about it even when you're not around, Katie.
Yeah,
We talk about you.
Do you actually?
Yeah.
We do.
Dylan
And it's
was
literally
talking
all
about,
the best things. So
when we were at the Airbnb together in Arizona, Dylan's like, Katie's so funny. Like,
oh my gosh,
she's just so funny. Like, is she always like this? I'm like, yeah, that's Katie.
this is her.
Okay, yeah. My coworkers told me that this week. They were like, you're so funny. And I'm like, I was like, Johnny thinks I'm funny too. I was like, you know what's funny? I think I'm funny.
No, you really are. And you
I don't know.
You are a positive vibe. Like,
thank you.
You know, and that's, more people need to be like that.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And it's not fake, I promise. Like, I went through
No, it ain't.
Yeah, no, it's
if
not.
you know me, I went through some shit in life.
Yeah.
Like, and I am who I am today because of what I went through in my life. And like, that's
you
just,
grew
I
and
choose
you're
better
happiness.
for
and
it.
you choose happiness.
I choose happiness every day, and like, that doesn't mean I don't feel my other emotions.
Right.
I learned the hard way, numbing your emotions. So I still feel my emotions, but I think when you're feeling your emotions, or why you feel like you're in a funk, I think it's really important to like understand the why. Like, going back to the why, like, why are you feeling this way? Like, did you like talk to someone and something rubbed you off the wrong way?
Yeah.
Like a situation, like that kind of thing. So, again, being aware of yourself, not just with food and nutrition and your habits, but like your emotions as well. Like, it all is like full circle.
It all connects.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it really does. And I'm so happy to be back in town. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for coming.
Girl, thank you so
Hopefully
much
it's
for
amazing.
coming.
Hopefully this blows up.
Manifest it for us.
I am. Oh my God. Honestly, I'm like, I love your podcast. I listen to it every week, like every Monday morning.
Katie is a real fan.
I literally can tell you every single thing about each episode. So, and Johnny is a
Thank
fan
you for
too.
that.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Love you too. Mwah. Thank you for coming on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope everyone learned a little something.
Yes.
And
100%, because I know I did, so somebody else did.
yeah, I hope so.
All right, well, we will see you next week.
Bye.